Before the cargo doors even open, the outside air is already biting. It's 3:12 a.m. in Dutch Harbor, Alaska, and the temperature hovers just below freezing. Dock crews in insulated gear move in silence under floodlights, their breath clouds mixing with the mist rising off the black harbor. Tied up at berth 3 is one of the most valuable loads to leave the Aleutian Islands this week, 90 tons of freshly caught king crab. Each claw tucked beneath the icy shell could be worth more than $100. But what makes this haul different isn't just the size. It's the fact that every single one of these crabs is destined to arrive in Las Vegas, over 3,000 miles away, still frozen, perfectly intact, and ready for white tablecloth service before the sun sets tomorrow. It starts on the Bering Sea, days earlier, when the Silver Queen, a steel-hulled crab boat outfitted like a floating processor, hauls in its last pot of the week. Every trap dropped had to sit on the ocean floor for exactly the right number of hours. Too short, and the crabs won't be worth the bait. Too long, and the shells start to deteriorate from stress. At 400 feet deep, the conditions are brutal. But king crab thrive here. Once hauled up, the cages are cracked open and the crew springs into action. There's no time for ceremony. The crabs are sorted by size and species right on deck. Anything undersized or female is thrown back immediately. Only the legally marketable catch, large males with thick, meaty legs, gets tagged and moved down the line. On board, the boat becomes a factory. Steam rises from the holding tanks as the crabs are stunned and blanched to kill bacteria and set the meat. Then, one by one, they're plunged into industrial freezers chilled to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Every piece must freeze in less than 2 hours to lock in texture and moisture. That's the standard. Any slower, and the legs begin to dry out, reducing market price. Inside the freezer hold, crab legs stack up like firewood, packed in wax-lined boxes labeled by weight. One box alone, fully frozen and sealed, can fetch up to $1, $200 depending on grade. Multiply that by thousands, and the value of the cargo climbs fast. Once the boat docks, the pressure only increases. In less than 90 minutes, a specialized cold chain logistics team must move every box off the boat and into a waiting refrigerated container staged nearby. The timing is critical. The crabs can't be exposed to above zero temperatures for more than 5 minutes during transfer without compromising the freeze integrity. That's why every crate is scanned, timed, and moved with military precision. Forklifts designed for freezer environments glide silently over the dock as load sheets are updated in real time. This isn't seafood. This is product. High value, time-sensitive, and temperature-dependent. Inside the reefer container, temperatures are already stabilized at -20 degrees Fahrenheit. Once fully loaded, the container is sealed, inspected, and driven to a nearby air cargo terminal where the next phase begins. The airline responsible for the shipment specializes in perishable freight. Every crew member on the loading team knows the stakes. Delays could mean thousands of dollars lost to partial thaw. While the sun rises over the Aleutian Range, the crabs are already being weighed, documented, and cleared through export inspection. Each pallet is strapped and staged for air transport aboard a converted wide-body freighter with dual-zone refrigeration. The flight, non-stop from Anchorage to Las Vegas, is scheduled for less than 6 hours. At 36,000 feet, the cargo hold is kept at a steady -10 degrees Fahrenheit, monitored by 4 independent sensors. The airline even has a technician on board to ensure live readings transmit to ground control every 30 seconds. It's overkill to some. But for a cargo valued at over $2.8 million, precision is policy. Any deviation, even a 10-minute compressor failure, could ruin entire pallets of crab. Below, in the belly of the jet, the sealed boxes ride through clouds, crossing snow-covered states and into the desert sun, where a different kind of crew waits. In Las Vegas, it's not fishermen or dock workers who handle the cargo next. It's chefs, suppliers, and luxury hotel buyers who've already prepaid for premium delivery, with freshness guaranteed by cold chain traceability and sensor-logged proof. Once the wheels touch down in Nevada, a second cold logistics team rushes the pallets to refrigerated trucks already pre-cooled and synced with live GPS and temperature feeds. The driver's job isn't just to deliver, it's to maintain an uninterrupted cold chain. Every truck is tracked in real time, and any deviation over 2 degrees Fahrenheit triggers a client alert. There are no shortcuts. When the delivery finally arrives at the back of a resort kitchen near the Vegas Strip, the chef opens the container not to steaming seafood, but to icy perfection. Legs thick, unbroken, and glistening with sub-zero frost. That crab was crawling across the seafloor less than 48 hours ago. Now it's headed for a plate that costs $95 per serving. And tomorrow, they'll do it all again. At the receiving dock behind the resort's industrial kitchen, the air conditioning systems are already running at full capacity. The desert heat outside is unforgiving, but inside the climate-controlled bay, the temperature holds steady just above freezing. Workers in light thermal gear carefully unload the sealed crates of king crab, still rock solid and showing no signs of thaw. They don't rip them open, not yet. Each container is inspected by a quality control specialist, who checks the integrity of the seals, the shipping logs, and the digital temperature recorders embedded in each pallet. These devices tell a story, every minute of every mile, showing that the crabs remained below freezing from the moment they left the boat to the second they reached the strip. Any anomaly, even a brief fluctuation, could mean a refund or rejection. But today, everything checks out. Inside the kitchen, the crab is brought in slowly. Not all at once. Just enough for the dinner service ahead. Executive chefs here don't work with frozen boxes. They work with high-end defrosting protocols, using controlled water baths, time-specific refrigeration, and humidity monitoring to ensure the texture of the meat is flawless once thawed. These aren't grocery store crabs. They're plated like sculpture, served in towers, risottos, and butter-glazed portions across buffets and private rooms with $500 minimums. Every bite is theater. But behind that moment, behind the candlelight and silver forks, is a cold chain that began in the Bering Sea with saltwater, steel, and speed. While Las Vegas celebrates the arrival, Dutch Harbor prepares to do it again. On the docks, another vessel is already moored, this one loading bait, fuel, and gear for a fresh drop. The process resets immediately. The next haul will start at midnight, when tides are optimal and crews are ready. On board, the deckhands inspect the steel crab pots, rectangular cages built to withstand the weight of ocean pressure and the force of full loads. Each pot is loaded with bait, often herring or cod, and stacked 6 high along the stern. Once the boat reaches the grounds again, the pots will be dropped overboard in precise GPS locations, each tethered to a buoy marked with unique identifiers, allowing retrieval crews to locate them even in blinding fog or raging swell. Beneath the surface, the real work happens. King crabs crawl along the ocean floor, drawn to the bait. They're not fast, but they're aggressive. Once inside the pot, they can't escape. The funnel traps them with downward pressure and angled mesh. A single pot can hold hundreds of pounds if set correctly. The crew above knows the balance between efficiency and legality. Overfilling risks damaging the crabs. Underfilling wastes fuel and time. It's a razor-thin line they walk with every deployment. And the moment the gear is in the water, the countdown begins. Each pot sits submerged for a fixed window, long enough to catch, short enough to preserve quality. Too much time underwater leads to shell stress and ammonia buildup, making the meat soft or sour. Timing here is everything. Back at sea, hours later, the crew uses hydraulic lifts to bring the pots back to the surface, one by one. The winches groan under the weight. The cages break through the surface in a burst of foam and spray, often with claws and legs clinging through the mesh. The crew rushes to open the doors, spilling dozens of massive king crabs onto the deck in a pile of motion, clatter, and steam rising from their damp shells in the cold air. They work fast, wearing thick gloves and waterproof suits, sorting the keepers from the tossbacks in seconds. Females, juveniles, or damaged crabs go overboard alive. The rest are pushed toward the onboard tanks, where the freezing process begins all over again. Down below, in the hold of the ship, the processing line is already active. Industrial freezers roar to life, and the crew works like factory technicians, lining up each crab on metal trays, limbs fully extended to prevent breakage during freezing. Liquid nitrogen systems and blast chillers run in cycles, locking in freshness while preventing the formation of ice crystals that damage texture. Every tray is timed, monitored, and rotated with care. These aren't just frozen products. Their reputation's on the line. In a market flooded with lower-grade imports, the Alaskan king crab stands as a luxury good, and it has to look like one the moment it's unpacked. As the cycle continues, boxes are labeled by catch date, boat ID, grade, and weight, all tracked in a cloud-based system used by seafood brokers in real time. On shore, in Seattle and Anchorage, restaurant suppliers and wholesalers watch the dashboard, making offers on available cargo before it even hits the airstrip. Deals are negotiated live, based on estimated thaw yield, size categories, and shipping availability. By the time the boat even docks again, 70% of its catch will already be sold. That's the advantage of data-linked cold chain logistics. Every player along the route knows exactly what's coming, when, and at what condition. Back in Las Vegas, those same dashboards send notifications to chefs and managers who track deliveries like stockbrokers. They aren't just buying seafood, they're investing in reputation. Serving crab that tastes like it was caught yesterday only works when the entire chain is flawless. And for that to happen, every crab must be handled, frozen, moved, and delivered with perfect timing. The process is brutal. It's expensive. It's fragile. But when it works, it transforms a deep-sea crustacean into a high-roller delicacy, crossing oceans, freezing skies, and desert heat without missing a single beat. The desert sun is just beginning to rise, casting a golden glow across the glass towers of the Las Vegas Strip. Inside the service corridors of some of the city's most prestigious resorts, a new shift is beginning, but in the kitchens, the preparations never really stopped. Sous chefs move quickly in the chilled prep rooms, carefully slicing open-sealed, frost-covered containers that have arrived just hours earlier. The crab inside is pristine. Thick, deep red shells with ivory claws, frozen in perfect position, untouched by ice melt or handling damage. Every box has a code and a timestamp. Some are already being gently thawed in temperature-controlled water baths, while others remain locked in backup freezers as the night's dinner service begins to take shape. In a few hours, these crabs will be plated on $250 towers, laid atop risottos, or flambéed tableside for private parties that run tabs in the tens of thousands. Behind the glamour of the Strip, another kind of preparation is underway. In Anchorage, 2 more containers are being loaded onto freight aircraft, each one holding just under 20 tons of king crab, frozen to exact specifications, bound for cities across the U.S. This isn't just a one-time supply line. It's a continuous loop, calibrated down to the hour, operating like a military campaign with seafood as the cargo. The freighters used are not ordinary cargo planes. They're modified to include dual refrigeration zones, dry ice injection ports, vibration-stabilized pallets, and custom airflow systems that prevent condensation from forming on the packaging. Every plane is inspected multiple times before takeoff, and on long-haul runs, technicians fly on board to monitor sensor readings manually, ensuring no drop in internal air temperature beyond half a degree. The cost of this level of precision is immense, but so is the payout. In high-end seafood, freshness equals control. The restaurants and distributors willing to pay premium aren't just buying crab, they're buying time saved, spoilage prevented, and trust maintained. For the crabbers back in Dutch Harbor, the urgency never drops. While their previous catch is already plated thousands of miles away, the crew is pulling up a new string of pots under freezing sleet. The decks are coated in a thin sheet of ice, and every surface is slick. The winches hiss with pressure as the next pot breaks through the waves, water cascading down in icy sheets, and a burst of red legs and snapping claws clatters onto the sorting table. This is not a job for the weak or inexperienced. Sorting happens fast, and injuries are common. Pinches, slips, crushed fingers. But the crew works in silence, driven by the rhythm of necessity. Each keeper is tagged and sent to processing. The rejects are tossed back overboard, flicking cold water as they disappear into the sea. Below deck, the blast freezers are being reloaded, the cycle starting over yet again. Legs must be extended fully to prevent breaking during freezing. Trays are rotated in phases to avoid temperature shock. Every box has a destination, often pre-sold before the crab even touched the boat's floor. Some are marked for Miami, others for Chicago, Dallas, or back to Las Vegas. Each market has different price points and grade demands, and each crate is selected and packed accordingly. The role of the cold chain specialists now extends beyond boats and planes. Warehouses across key U.S. cities maintain what's known as a zero-gap inventory system, meaning there's never more than a 36-hour lag between arrival and delivery. Inventory is rotated based on catch date, with live monitoring of thaw rates and demand forecasts. This isn't fish in a freezer. This is perishable capital, moving with purpose and tagged with data. At any given moment, over 200 tons of king crab can be in transit, frozen solid, monitored by dozens of systems that connect ocean vessels, air traffic, warehouse managers, restaurant suppliers, and end consumers. Meanwhile, at the back of a resort steakhouse in Vegas, a single crab claw is plated with tweezers onto a porcelain dish. A chef checks the shell for color, heat, and fragrance. If it doesn't match the standard, it doesn't go out. Reputation is everything, and even one subpar leg can trigger a bad review or a lost account. The claw passes inspection. It's finished with a glaze of citrus butter, garnished with microgreens, and carried out to a private table lit by crystal chandeliers. The guest will take one bite, maybe two, and never think about the journey it took to get there. But behind the scenes, that bite represents an invisible machine, one powered by engines, algorithms, steel cages, insulated containers, and hands chapped by cold salt water. It's a bite that began with a trap sunk in the frigid Bering Sea, rose up through hydraulic winches, passed through a blast chiller, rode a refrigerated flight across the continent, and was tracked every step of the way by people who would never taste it. Every movement had to be perfect. Every degree mattered. Because in this world, freshness isn't a feature. It's the product itself. As night falls again over the Aleutian Islands, the Silver Queen is back at sea. The sky is black, the wind sharp, and the deck lights cast long white beams across the glistening steel surface. On board, the crew is resetting. The pots are stacked, rebaited, and ready to drop again. It's been less than 72 hours since their last load was packed, frozen, flown, and plated in Las Vegas, but no one speaks about that. They're focused on the next haul. Out here, the past is irrelevant. The ocean only cares about what you do next. The freezing mist from the sea clings to every surface, and the boat sways against the current as if reminding them that the work never ends. On this line, routine is everything. Each motion is a ritual, and each crab pulled from the deep is another piece of a system so complex, so invisible to outsiders, that most people eating it will never know how it got there. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, the dishes keep coming. Crab towers for newlyweds. Butter-glazed claws for corporate dinners. Chilled crab leg cocktails for high-stakes poker tables. None of the guests can see the data tags embedded in the boxes. None of them smell the diesel that powered the reefer containers or hear the whine of the jet engines that flew them over the Rockies while they slept. They just taste freshness, texture, richness. And all of that was possible because hundreds of people across hundreds of miles worked in perfect sequence to protect every detail of a single product. A king crab claw, cooked to perfection, still frozen at delivery. But this system only functions because the people behind it never drop the line. The fishermen, the freezer techs, the forklift operators, the air cargo handlers, the chefs, each of them plays a role. And none of them can afford failure. A 5-minute thaw, a single broken seal, a mistimed delivery, and the illusion falls apart. That's why the level of discipline in this supply chain rivals that of any high-tech industry. There are no backup plans. No good enough. Every box of crab that leaves Dutch Harbor carries the weight of expectation and the risk of loss. Which is why the systems are built like fortresses, redundancies stacked on top of checklists, equipment checked twice before deployment, routes recalculated in real time to avoid delays, and sensors constantly pinging data back to cloud servers that never sleep. The result is something almost invisible. A product that appears simple, a crab on a plate, but that actually represents thousands of moving parts. A crab that took hundreds of human hands, thousands of gallons of fuel, tons of equipment, and more than 1,000 degrees of careful temperature monitoring to arrive intact. A crab that rode forklifts, freezers, freight elevators, and first-class airspace just to be devoured in 6 bites. And then, when the dish is cleared, the story disappears, unless someone tells it. That's what we're doing here. We're showing you the truth behind what looks effortless. We're showing you the real chain that links ocean to luxury, not with glossy promos or seafood marketing buzzwords, but with the actual cold, mechanical, brutally efficient engine that powers this world behind the curtain. It's not glamorous. It's not romantic. It's not easy. But it's real. And it happens every day. If you made it this far, you already understand more than 99% of people who've ever eaten king crab. You now know what it takes to haul 90 tons of product out of freezing seawater, process it before it can spoil, freeze it down to the molecular level, fly it across the country without it thawing for even a second, and serve it as if it had just been caught hours earlier. And that's why your subscription matters more than you think. This channel exists to pull back the curtain on operations like this, to give credit to the crews that never get seen, to expose the systems that most industries never talk about, and to tell the real stories of how the world actually works. We go where others don't. We capture what others ignore. And we share it in a way that makes sense, without filters or fiction. So if you value real insight, real scale, and real stories from the front line of production, logistics, and human endurance, click that subscribe button. It's just a click for you. But it's everything for us. Because the more people we reach, the more stories we can tell, the more crews we can highlight, and the more reality we can bring to a world oversaturated with polished illusion. Thank you for watching, and welcome aboard.